The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Good morning, and welcome to today's presentation on advanced tools for single laboratories in eDATA. My name is Al Ramsey, and I'm a marketing manager with Waters ERA. And we'll wait for just one more moment here for it to be 11 o'clock, and then we'll begin going through today's slides. So today's agenda is really to take a look at the eDATA system and some of the advanced tools that are built into the site to help you manage your data. These reports include the performance report, the exception report, the ZScore trending chart, PT review, healthier labs, and the newly launched risk report. The key takeaways for today's presentation are really how these tools can help you easily explore your performance history, and that includes quickly identifying failures, identifying analyte trends, comparing method performance, identifying analyst training needs, and anticipating and preventing analyte failures. So before we begin our demonstration of the site today, I just wanted to talk a little bit about our eDATA roadmap and our main objectives in redesigning the site. We launched the new eDATA site about 6 months ago now, and our objectives when we were designing the site were really to simplify and streamline the PT experience. We wanted to make it easier and more efficient for the users. We wanted to help quality assurance managers analyze performance more effectively, and we wanted to make it easier for managers to identify and manage their accreditation risk. In addition, for corporate networks, we wanted to improve visibility for corporate managers so they got more visibility to the laboratories within their network. And we also wanted to make the site flexible so that we can enable growth and collaboration with customers to meet tomorrow's needs. So as I said, while eDATA was launched about 6 months ago, we continue to enhance the system based on feedback from our users. And this includes building new features such as the risk report that we just released, and we'll take a look at that later on in the presentation. So in today's presentation, we'll take a look at a few scenarios, and I'm going to exit this presentation and get into the actual system. So this is the eDATA login page. Just wait for this to load up. All right, and we'll enter the site. So when you first log into eDATA, you're going to arrive at this dashboard, and this is really your main hub in eDATA. And in terms of how to use the site for entering data, for retrieving final reports, and some of the basic features of the site, we do have a number of tools that we've made available on our website at www.eraqc.com. We have a page dedicated to eDATA, and you can access the user manual that'll walk you through how to perform some of the more basic tasks in eDATA. We also have a number of videos and presentations to help you navigate the site. So we'll skip some of that basic navigation here in today's presentation, and really we're going to focus on some of these advanced tools. So as I said, we're going to look at a couple of scenarios, and in the first case, your lab, in this case our lab is our Our customer number is E667502, and this is an internal ERA account that is used just for demonstration purposes. But we've just completed WP 246, and the study is now closed. So when we were participating in the study and reporting our data, we had a few concerns about the trace metals, and we know that we had a few unacceptable results in the last study. So we're kind of anxious to see how we did and if our accreditation's been affected. So the first thing that we're going to do is go to our exception report. And I'm going to take a look at our study. In this case, it's going to be, we're going to look at WP, which just closed, and I'm going to go over and select WP 246. And this is the one that has just recently closed and we want to start taking a look at. So the exception report is a quick view of just your not acceptable results. As I said, you can select one study. You can also select multiple studies if we wanted to go back and take a look at unacceptable results that we've had for WP studies in the past. You can filter this report by the study type. You can filter it by year. You can filter it by analyte as well if you use some of these filter boxes up here at the top. You can filter by evaluation, method, ZScore, range, analyst. And we've also built in some links to other parts of the site. You can link to your Hoyle reports here using the name of the analyte, and you can also access the ZScore trending chart here. So first we're going to take a look at this, and we've identified that in terms of a not acceptable result, we've identified lead and nickel as being unacceptable. Now nickel I'm not quite as concerned about, but lead I know that the last time around we had a not acceptable result there, so I'm a little bit concerned about my accreditation. And the next place that we're going to go to check that out is our PT review report. So I'm going to go up to reports, click on PT review, and here's our PT review. So what this is showing you is over your last 5 studies by close date, where you've had unacceptable results. Now, it's set to default to not acceptable, but you can also take a look at all of your results and take a look down through. So these are all WP. We've got our list by analyte. We've listed our methods and revisions, and here are our results. So if I actually review that, it'll tell you the date that it was analyzed, and if you hover over it, it'll also show you what the study was where that failure occurred. So I'm going to go back just to my not acceptable results here. I see my lead. I've got 2 methods, EPA 200.7 and EPA 200.8. My last round here, I did have that not acceptable on 246, but it looks like I'm okay because the last time on by this method here on WP 240, my results were acceptable. So no accreditation risk on this one. We're safe for this time, but certainly we've got some work to do to investigate that analyte. Now, one of the neat features about the PT review report is that if I had failed my last study, this entire row would be shaded red, so it would clearly stand out that I've got some risk there that I need to deal with. Now, the PT review report also, if you wanted to take a look at your evaluation, it's defaulted to the TNI 2009 evaluation, but you can change that and you can look at it as a 2003 evaluation as well. And if I wanted to change the date range, I could extend this back a little further as well. I could change matrices. I can do all kinds of stuff when I'm within this report. But for the purposes of our example here, I'm really just concerned about my lead and WP 246. So now that I've identified that I've had that failure, unfortunately for lead and for nickel in WP 246, I've checked out to make sure that my accreditation is not at risk for either one of those analytes. I'm going to take a look at how I did on the rest of the results. So for that, I'm going to go to the performance report, and here I'm going to use the search to pick out my WP. I'm going to look at WP 246, and the performance report is going to show me all of the analytes that I participated in for that study, how I performed my reported result against the assigned value, what the limits were. But I've got some filters here that I can use as well that are kind of neat. So I can actually filter this by not acceptable results, and that'll take me back to the exception report if I wanted to look at that. But really what I'm concerned with here is, at a quick glance, it looks like most of these are pretty good. You can see I've got a few non-acceptables here, the lead and the nickel, that are called out in this report as well. But I'm really concerned with, are there any others that I didn't fail that I didn't perform as well as I would like? So over here we have a ZScore filter, and ZScore is really a measure of, how we performed relative to the mean of all the laboratories that reported results for that study for that analyte. If you'd like to find out more about ZScore, we do have a webinar that was done last spring, and it's posted up on our website at eraqc.com under resources. And we'll be doing another presentation on statistics for proficiency testing later on this year if you'd like to attend that to learn a little bit more about ZScore. But for our purposes today, ZScore is really comparing our result against the mean of all the participants that participated in that study. So I'm going to take a look at this, and I'm going to look at the warning and unsatisfactory results. So that is all results that had a Z-score of greater than 2. And when I click on that, here you see we've got our lead and nickel, obviously, where we had that failure, but we've got a few other analytes on here that we had acceptable results, but if you look at the Z-score, it's a little bit higher. So we've got a Z-score of 2.4, 2.6, so it's within the warning range, even though those results are acceptable. So this may be a situation where we haven't had a failure yet, but we want to do a little bit more investigation into these results. Now, if I wanted to take this report and use it in the laboratory, take it out to show the laboratory supervisors, and to start addressing these concerns, I can click on the Export Report button, and this will export all the data that you're seeing, whether it's just the ones that we've selected here, or if we look at all of the results, you can export this into an Excel. And certainly a lot of us like to take a look at the data, cut it, slice it, and manipulate the data to show various trends and that kind of thing, to work with the data in Excel. So this will give you an easy format to do that if you like to cut the data different ways and have a file that you can then take to work with folks in the lab. So that's the end of our first scenario where we've identified, we've taken a look at a study that's recently closed. We've identified, what our most critical priorities are in terms of analytes that have failed. We've taken a look at our accreditation risk. We've made sure that none of our accreditations are at risk for this particular study. And we've taken a look at our performance in general, as well as some of the analytes that were satisfactory that potentially we could take a look at here because they performed a little bit less than what we would have liked. So now in our next scenario, we're going to take a look at that same laboratory where we know we've had a result that wasn't acceptable for the lead and the nickel. The next thing we've got to do is to obviously conduct a root cause investigation, and we've got to take corrective action to maintain our accreditations. So as part of our investigation, we need to take a detailed look at our trace metal results, in particular for lead and nickel. As well, I'd like to take a look at my performance history to see if there's something that's showing in the PT data that provides a little bit of evidence whether or not it's a systematic problem or really what's going on here with our lead and our nickel. So the first thing I'm going to do is go to performance reports. Again, this is that detailed look at our performance. I'm going to bring up, in this case, I'm going to go a little bit farther back. I don't want to just look at my last study, but I want to take a look at all the studies that I've done in 2015. So I'm just going to click on WP 2015, and this is going to bring up both studies that I participated in. You can see over here we've got WP 246 as well as WP 240, all the analytes that we participated in. And I don't want to just look at the last year, but I also want to take a look at last year as well. So I'm going to click up here for adding a study, and I'm going to go back to 2014, also WP, and I'm going to click on that. So here are all our results. We've got a lot of information displayed on this page. We've reported a lot of analytes for the studies that we participated in. So to make this a little bit more manageable, because I'm really just concerned with lead, I'm going to use the analyte search here, and I'm just going to bring up lead. And here you can see all the results that we've had for lead in the last 2 years. And again, I can examine the reported value against the assigned value, where that fell within the limits. We've got our evaluation here. Obviously, these two not acceptable in the last 2. Prior to that, our performance looked pretty good here. We were all acceptable and fairly close to the reported range. Z-scores look pretty good. We've got a few here that are a little bit higher earlier on. Now, if we wanted to take another look at this and take a look at our percent recoveries and how we did on those, I can click on lead here, and this is going to bring me into the Healthier Lab reports, specifically the Healthier Lab analyte report. So these are all our results for trace metals again. But one of the neat features about this this particular report is that it highlights any of the Z-scores that were in the warning range, so a Z-score greater than 2 or a Z-score greater than 3, which is an unsatisfactory result. So we've got all of our results here that we're a little bit concerned with, all shaded for us. And I'm looking back a period of 18 months here. So I've got WP246, I've got a quick response, I've got WP240 and WP234. And let's take a look for lead. So obviously here's the one that we had a problem with. We can take a look at our recovery. So our recovery on this one was 82%. But on the last two studies before that, for this particular method, we performed pretty good. We had a recovery of 97%, 98%, and that corresponded to Z-scores that were pretty close to the mean. So if I want to take a look at how this looks in a little bit more graphical means, I'm going to click on that Z-score, the one that's shaded in red here, or really any of the ones that are associated with lead. And it's going to bring me to the Z-score graph. So here I can see, on a graphic display, how I performed over the period of time that's selected here for display. In this case, we're going back to 2013. So I just want to take a look at those two methods, 200.7 and 200.8 that I had some challenges with, and I'm going to clean up this report a little bit. And here we have just those two methods. So in addition to taking a look at just, say, 200.8, that we had the unsatisfactory result on this particular study, I can also compare that against another method. So it's kind of a neat feature to be able to overlay your performance, from one method to the next to see, if you're having problems in one area, but does that mean that you're having problems with another method as well? And you can take a look back at the data points. So when I hover over each one of these data points, and each circle shown on the graph is a data point, it'll tell me what study this was, what my method was, and what the Z-score was. You can see on the chart over here, we've got the Z-scores listed on this axis, and we've shaded the range corresponding from a Z-score of greater than 2 to 3, and in orange to demonstrate that this is kind of the warning area. And then greater than 3 is shaded in red, and this is that unsatisfactory area that we don't want to be in, as we saw here on that last study for method 200.8, and on the previous study for method 200.7. So we have we had some high results for 200.8, going back a few studies, and then things look pretty good, and all of a sudden here we've got this sharp drop off. So in looking at this chart, we'd like to see maybe what we did on these last two rounds and what we did differently on this particular round here. So it kind of gives you a representation to see how your performance has changed over a period of time. And this is a report that we accessed when we were looking for something specific, but you can use this report at any time by going to the reports section here, clicking on the Z-score graph, and then making your selections. So we'll look at WP, pick a standard. Let's take a look at our trace metals, and we'll look at lead, EPA 200.7, and add it to chart. So you can do that at any time. You don't have to be accessing it, the way we're using it here now. But certainly, what we'd like to demonstrate is how these reports all fit together to help you investigate problems and identify where your risk is and where your priorities might need to be in order to improve your results going forward. All right. So that takes us to the end of that scenario. So once we've completed our investigation, we've looked at our performance history, we've gone back through all the other things that we would normally look at as part of our root cause investigation and taken our corrective actions. We want to take a look at, what else is happening within the laboratory? How is our overall performance? How is our general health of the laboratory? So looking beyond, our last study, at a higher level, how our lab is performing relative to our peers, and we can find that out by going to reports and going into Hoyle. So this is the Hoyle main page. This is going back 18 months. And we can select either 12, we can look at the last year, we can look at 18, or we can look at a little further at 36 months as well. Looking at WP, which is what we looked at in those first two scenarios, this report allows me to compare my pass rate for the analytes that I participated in versus the pass rate for all the laboratories that are participating. So in my last study here, WP 246 that we looked at in the first two scenarios, my pass rate for that was 96%, whereas all the participants that participated in that study were 95%, so I'm doing pretty good. My acceptable evaluations are here, so I've got 63 acceptables, I've got 2 not acceptable evaluations, and I've got 65 total evaluations. So if I wanted to drill into this and really see what these 2 were, I can click on this 2 in the report, and it'll take me right into my exception report. So we can start that process all over again. So if this is something that I identified after the fact or wanted to dig into, it's certainly something that I can access from the Hoyle reports as well. Similarly, if I wanted to take a look at WP 246, I can click on it and it'll take me into the standard map. So if I wanted to take a look at my trace metals in general relative to all labs that participate in that study, I can take a look here and see that I passed 96% of my analytes, whereas all the labs that participate in the study, the average was 95%. So again, my performance is in line with my peers. And if I want to continue to drill down, I can click on trace metals and it'll take me to that analyte view that we looked at earlier for all of the trace metals going back over the last number of studies. And I can take a look for my lead, as well as any of the other analytes that I wanted to investigate. So that's Hoyle. And now we're going to go to the risk report, which is a new feature that we've just launched and we're really excited about. So the risk report is really a tool to help you identify any concerning trends, and it looks at all of your data. So it doesn't just look at analytes where you've had unacceptable results. It also looks at analytes that you've had acceptable results, but by looking back at the data over time, perhaps there's a trend that's being identified, whether that's unsatisfactory or warning ZScores over the previous studies that you've participated in, whether it's consistently positive or negative bias. You can see trends for results where you're trending consistently low or consistently high, which certainly has implications for the laboratory, particularly in terms of your customer samples. If you're continually biasing low or high, but within the acceptable range, that might be something to be worried about. It might be something to take a look into. So this report will help you identify those kinds of situations. It also looks at directional trending. So do I have results that are within the acceptable range but are trending high or low? All of the criteria that the report evaluates are listed up here in this corner, and we've got a key that'll show you. The one here at the bottom is the last 5. So this is the last data points are all trending in the same direction. So that might be positive or negative, but we have a clear direction in terms of our results increasing or decreasing. Same thing here, L3, looking at the last 3 data points having a trend in the same direction. The last 5 data points all on the same side of the mean. The last 3 data points were all on the same side of the mean. So it really identifies a number of these trends for you, and it does it automatically, and it does it very quickly, as you saw when I brought up the report. Now to take a look at this table here, it gives you a little bit of information. It brought up our trace metals and mercury that we looked at in the prior screen, but if you click on it, it'll bring up a trending chart, and it'll show you, in this case here, for mercury, we had an acceptable result in the last study that we participated in. This is our WP 246, and I can see that when I hover over the data point, it shows me the study, the method, and who the analyst was as well. But there's a clear trend here that we're performing below the mean. So that certainly is something that we might want to take a closer look at. We get out of that, we'll take a look at our lead that we obviously had an issue with in the last study. But you can click down through here and you can see trends over time, and certainly use this as a means to prioritize. So we've participated in hundreds of analytes over the last several studies, and this is going to pick out just the ones where there's a trend that we might want to take a closer look at. Certainly it doesn't do all the work in terms of investigating this, and you may take a look at some of these that may look okay where they're fairly close to the mean, but all on the same side, and identify where you want to prioritize your time. But certainly in the case of this analyte, and this is our chromium, there's a clear downward trend here, and the potential for a failure on the next study if we continue that downward trend. So that's something that we definitely want to take a look at and correct before we participate in our next study, so that we don't have an analyte that results in a failure. Now, if I wanted to take this and I wanted to look for something specific, I can filter by standard, I can filter by analyte. If I only want to look for a specific type of trend, I can also select the flag that I want to use up here. So by default, we've selected all, but if I want to look at just directional trending, I'm just going to click on this. I'm just going to click on L5 here. And deselect the ones that I don't want to look at. Okay. And we'll click on all these. All right. If I want to take a look at just a particular flag, I can look at, let's say, ones that only had a single flag, or I can look at ones that had 2 flags or 3 flags. So this gives you the ability to prioritize. The more flags that are raised with a particular analyte, obviously, the closer you want to take a look at it. You can also filter here by analyte. So if I wanted to filter by lead, you can click on lead, and it'll bring up just your lead result that resulted in a flag that you'd selected. So as you can see, this is a pretty powerful tool. It certainly does a lot of analysis for you, looking back at your results over a period of time, identifying concerning trends. And we do, as I said, up here in the left-hand corner, have a description of what these trends are that we're looking at. Now, if you have any questions about this report or any of the other reports that we looked at today, I'd encourage you to contact ERA, contact our customer service team or your salesperson. And we would certainly be happy to go through this demo in detail with you, take a look at some of the details, and perhaps talk about some of the challenges that you're working on in your lab, and identify how these tools can help you by making your job easier, helping you save time by looking at by using automation to review flags and to evaluate your performance. So with that, I'd like to thank you for participating in the presentation today, and I'd like to encourage you to log into eDATA, to take a look at your studies using some of the tools that we went over today. We will be posting the webinar on our website as well if you'd like to take a look at the recording of the broadcast, or to contact me, and my email will go out after the presentation is finished for some feedback. You can certainly contact me for copies of some slides that we have that will help walk you through some of these reports and some of the scenarios that we looked at, so that you can use them in your lab. So with that, I'd like to thank everyone for participating, and have a great day.